special guest, Mr. Robert Schweickert. Most people know him in the early days as Bob Schweickert. He used to play for the Jets for a little while, for 3 years, but was most known in Virginia Tech as a guy who broke the rushing record I think it was 1964, for the Virginia Tech Gobblers, is it?
We were the Gobblers. That we were.
They were the Gobblers. And that record, it was a most rushing record for any quarterback. That record, it was a school record. That record was, I believe, held for a little more than 50 years. So how are you doing today, Mr. Schweickert? And thank you for just joining me on and letting me interview you.
Well, shucks, we're doing just fine. And of course, this goes back for many, many years. And it's a wonder what some of the things that did occur at that time. But here we are today. And we look back and with lots of pride and joy about some of the things that God was able to do through us on a football field.
So we will get right into it. He's just going to kind of share some stories, some advice from his playing days. Again, this was a long time. He was one of the first running quarterbacks to make it famous. So let's start it off. You won Virginia Tech's only Southern Conference championship, first team All-American. Take us back to that day and kind of some stories that you liked the most.
Well, you have to remember one thing. We were a very small team. Mm-hmm. Our school was only 5,000 students. We had 52 players. In every game that we participated, we were outweighed. When we played Syracuse, we were outweighed almost 45 pounds a man. That's how much we were outweighed, and they had 110 players.
Okay.
And we had 52. So you can imagine this little team, but we had a coach named Jerry Claiborne. Jerry Claiborne believed that we were going to be in the best physical shape possible so that no matter who we played against, they're going to know that they went up against a bunch of kids from Virginia Tech who were going to give it all that they had. And we had never won a championship at Tech, and it was really a blessing that we pulled it off. We had a good group of young guys who really put their hearts in it. And it's one of those things that I came from a high school, Midlothian High School, where we had 16 players. And you can imagine with 5 people sitting on the bench and the rest of them on the field, I got to play all the time. But we did everything that we could for each other, pulling together. And that is exactly what we had when we were at Virginia Tech. So we got through a season. And we ended up with the championship, which is always what you strive for when you start. You don't know how it's going to come out, but we were blessed that year, and it went down in the record books, and that was a good thing for us to share.
Stood out.
Can't hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any particular stories that stood out to you during those days, or was it just overall a great run?
Well, it was just overall a great team effort. We had a few things that happened in that run. We had 2 losses, but none of those were, of course, in the conference. And we can look back at a couple of those and wish that we had not lost those games. But one of them was simply a dropped punt and recovered by the opposition, and a touchdown was scored that beat us in a game that we really should have won. So as a team, we just pulled together, and it ended up being a great thing for Virginia Tech. It put us on the map. And I think from that point on, Virginia Tech started to grow both in the number of students and people wanting then to come to Virginia Tech to participate in our football program. Claiborne was one fine football coach. I admired him. He was a Christian. Probably one of the reasons that I signed, number one, my brother went to Virginia Tech, and I didn't want to go outside of Virginia to play with what talent I had. I was one of those in college, in high school, when they said, you're going to get a scholarship. And I said, do you really think so, Ed? And I said, do you think I'm that good? And I had an official in one game said, son, you are that good. Well, I just did not know that, did not believe that necessarily. But the statement that I made to Coach Claiborne was, I will do all for my team that I can do, and I hope that it's good enough.
Mm-hmm. So, was the championship won in 1963 or?
Yes.
19. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me that, like, it always when I hear that, because you played punter and quarterback, right? Correct?
Yes.
So it's fascinating because most of the time now in the NFL, because that was way back in the day, but most of the time now in the NFL, I mean, there's only one position. You rarely play two, but it's amazing that you play two. Most people would be surprised that is even possible.
Well, it's interesting. There's two things to look at there. When I played in the Senior Bowl, I actually played defense and flanker back because we had three quarterbacks on the plus me. And I don't mean this to sound any way except that I could do a lot of things. And some other people like Joe Namath had a difficult time running because of his knees. And I didn't. I could run, and they called me Hugh McElhaney because they called me Crazy Legs Hirsch. They called me the Rabbit. They called me the Bullet. I had all kinds of names because I could run. And if I could run as a flanker back and catch a pass, there's some of the assets that I might have that someone could use. And so even when I went to the Jets, I went in, and I'll just cover this with you now. Weeb Eubank was looking for a replacement running back because Bill Mathis was going to retire, and they needed a running back. Well, as a runner, I ran as much as 25 times a game in college. And so my talent was really running. I could throw, but I couldn't throw it like Namath could. But when you suck up a defense by running with the football, you leave receivers open. And if you can get the ball to them, you've completed a pass. Who cares if it's 60 yards or 20 yards or 10 yards? It's just a way of moving the ball down the field. So I was blessed. God just blessed me with the ability. Like, I returned punts and kickoffs in high school. I was our punter. I was our kicker. I even played defense as free safety. And Coach Claiborne said, one time he said, you're the best defensive player that I have, but I can't afford to use you on defense. I have to use you at quarterback. So, and they designed, the blessing that I had was that they designed the Virginia Tech offense around what I could do, and that is to option run with the ball or throw it. And so we didn't throw but 10 to 12 passes a game. So statistics would not be large, but going down the field and scoring touchdowns is what it was all about.
Right. So, that's very interesting. It's just so intriguing that you could play so many positions. That's pretty cool that you spent a lot of time around Joe Namath, the great Joe Namath. So we could get to our next question. Do you have any other stories to share on that?
Oh, shucks. I can get into stories and we can be there for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to give you one cute story that I was going through my things out here in my storage room, and I found my football helmet from when I was a kid. This is when I was 8 or 9 years old. I have my football helmet. And the interesting thing was that when we were in college and we were having our summer practices, a guy named Babe Pirelli came to Virginia Tech to help the quarterbacks.
Okay.
And he helped me everything that he could do to help me. And I never knew that the signature on my football helmet was Babe Pirelli. Now, this is when I am 8 or 9 years old. He is already signing his autograph on my helmet. And I could not believe that he had coached me, and he even came to the Jets. You wouldn't remember it, but at the end of his career, he was a New York Jet quarterback.
Mhm.
And so I picked up the telephone and I found this man named Babe Pirelli. Now, this is 40 years later. And I
Wow.
said, Babe, I said, my name is Robert Schweickert. And I said, you do not know who I am, but I certainly know who you are. And
Mhm.
he said, if you're Bob Schweickert from Virginia Tech, I know that you became an All-American quarterback, and I was blessed to be able to coach you. Now,
That's
how he could remember that, I have no idea. And God, I'm sorry, but I am Christian, and
yep.
God just put me on the phone with this man to tell him how much I respected him and to thank him for what he did for me. And 2 months later, he passed away.
Wow.
And he was 80, I think 84 years old.
Wow.